Hello, class. I am preparing a video for you to go over assignment 3A and 3B that are due next week. So in the syllabus assignment, well, first of all, if we look at what we have already done, we did the pre-design where you chose a syllabus template or syllabi templates. You were to look at the diversity, equity, and inclusion content that was in the syllabus to make sure that it um, did actually consider enough as in a satisfactory amount these three things, DEI, in your course. And then you were also to look at your university or school that you were developing a course for and kind of get an idea of the context your course would be taught in, how many students were there, what type of programs, what type of student body was there, etc. And then you were to look, put the program description and outcomes into your syllabus, into your two syllabi. And I was just looking over Billing and Halstead's chapter 10, and they had a great description of pre-design. So more information on that, you can read a little bit more there. So for this, if we go to this syllabus that we have been kind of working on, so here was week 2, what you were supposed to put in. Billing and Halstead, I also saw had a really good chapter on philosophy and putting your what a philosophy looks like. So you can go into that book and just look at that for just some tips. And then for week 2, you were going to put in your instructor name, all of this information here. And for week 3, what you would do was choose your course code, the number and title, and the name of your course. And then I also want you to put in there if the course is undergraduate or graduate, because when we're having students transfer credits into our School of Nursing, any School of Nursing, you can tell by the number sometimes. The higher the number, you would consider that a graduate course, and the lower number, it's the undergraduate, but that's not always the case. So the syllabi should actually state what program or what level this course is in. So then you would have the course meeting where you're going to meet, the mode, and then there's a great little thing here that has a course definition. So you can really look at this and say, okay, I want my course is going to be face-to-face. What is that? Well, go back here. It meets in person, requires scheduled classes that occur regularly. Say, oh, I want a asynchronous. What is that again? So you can say, it's online with optional meetings that are recorded and available for online or on-demand viewing. And then, so this is really a great flow sheet here that give you the definition. So just fill that in on your syllabi there. And let's see, what else? For assignment 3, we're going to have you do the number of units. So that's a given. I told you your first course was going to be undergraduate 8-week 4 unit, and your graduate course was going to be 8-week 3 unit. Let's see here, the credit hour policy, that's something I want you to put into your syllabi, even though USM does not have that in there. But well, look here, it says the United States Department of Education requires a written credit hour policy. I think I might have a word with our provost and see why we are not having that in our syllabi at USM. So pop that in there. That I'll post, I think in this week's, excuse me, in this week's resources, there is a little bit more information about credit hour policy. The modality here we went over already. You look at that definition there that's in the chart there. Course description, tell about the goals of the course. Is it going to be clinical or didactic? If so, how many hours are you going to have that are going to be clinical, and how many will be classroom, otherwise known as didactic? So this should go into your credit hour policy there, and it should also go into your course description there. When you are describing your course, you want to make sure that it meets with the general mission of the university, the overall program outcomes and competencies. And then if your course is, if it's an undergraduate nursing course, then you're really going to be looking at making sure that your course is preparing students to become RNs. And if you're in a graduate course, the new essentials really say that advanced practice, there are definite domains and competencies that should be practiced to be an advanced level nurse, but then there's also specialties. Those specialty competencies are put forth by the professional organization that oversees that specialty. So, for example, if you're going to be a master's of science in nursing, you would meet the level 2 competencies for becoming a nurse, and also the National League of Nursing academic nurse educator competencies. For healthcare administration leadership, it's the American organization of, they just changed their name, A1. The American Organization of Nurse Leaders. So they put forth the competencies for clinical nurse leaders and for nurse executives. So let me just bring this up for you, because this is kind of helpful here. The essentials go through these different domains that they say are essential part of nursing education. So there's professionalism is domain 9. So they say at entry level to nursing, these are the competencies, and these are all written at the appropriate level of Bloom's. So you could actually say, okay, go into this, the essentials here, match it with the course that you're teaching, and then pull out some of these competencies and use similar competencies in your course. So these are the entry level. These would be at the master's and graduate level over here on the right side. So they would say for professionalism, a competency for undergraduate would be to apply principles of professional nursing ethics and human rights in patient care and professional situations. And for at the graduate level, they would say analyze. So you can see that Bloom's word is at a higher level there. Analyze current policy and practices in the context of an ethical framework. So here, that's just some great, competencies that have been written at the appropriate level of Bloom's. So I just go ahead in there and take a look at those and see if those can help you when writing your course outcomes. Okay. So we just did jumped ahead to course. Jill, it's not objectives. Course outcomes. Sorry about that, guys. Outcomes, and I saw again in Billing and Halstead that there was they did review at the beginning of chapter 10 the difference between competencies, outcomes, and objectives. So for maybe if you have weekly learning objectives, that would make sense, but your overarching course should be outcomes. We should have outcomes there for that. And Billing and Halstead's also noticed that course learning objectives, outcomes, and competencies must be written at appropriate level or relevance to clinical practice to be easily understood by student and to guide evaluation of attainment. And that kind of just takes us back to what we were talking about, the essentials. So all those different levels there that they have in those new essentials are actually at these appropriate levels related to clinical practice. So have at least 4 course outcomes. Each one of you should try using 1 factual outcome, 1 conceptual, 1 procedural, and 1 metacognitive. And there are 6 cognitive processes. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. And you can see in this here, in this Bloom's wheel, factual knowledge consists of remembering and understanding. Conceptual knowledge is understanding and applying. Procedural knowledge can be analyzing and evaluating, and metacognitive knowledge can be evaluating and creating. So that is kind of, I hope, a little bit of a review on Bloom's, which I know we had in our last class, 635, and I believe you had that in some other classes. So we went over the AACN new essentials, and I just wanted to kind of have you be thinking about our for lesson 4. You will be developing some of your outcomes that you are writing this week for your undergraduate course. So you're going to choose 1 learning outcome that you identify this week in week 4. And then Billing and Halstead's has a really great lesson plan template, and that is in box 10-2 on page 184. And you will be going through that and developing 1 module so you will have an outcome, and you'll say, how am I going to get students to meet this outcome? So in box 10.2, it gives an example of a undergraduate psychosocial adaptation course, and it's the module title is here, and then there's a purpose to it. So I want you to mirror what is in this here, but use your own course there. So you'll title your module and give it a purpose, and then you'll select the program outcome related to the lesson. So that's how we're kind of mapping back. Say you wanted to do a cardiac assessment, and then you'd map that back to one of the undergraduate program outcomes would be students would be able to assess the health of a client. So that would be kind of how that would be mapped back to the bigger program outcome. And then it says select course outcome related to the lesson. So here's where you would put in your course outcome. And this example here is excellent provider of care. Analyze adaptive responses to coping and coping strategies in the context of all of life events. And then outcomes related to this lesson, they have written here, describe the difference between grand and middle range theories. Describe examples of using the Roy adaptation model in clinical practice, and explain Roy's middle range theory development process. So these, it could be called the lesson outcomes or lesson objectives. And then it just, you would go through here and you'd say, what do you want students to do? What resources and knowledge should they have before they come to the class? And we kind of talked about that with textbooks. If you can go back and think about what textbooks you might have used in other courses, you can use that, or you can find some YouTubes that they might want to look at, listen to heart sounds, things like that. And then learning experience in class. So what are you going to do during the class? What is your learning experience? Also called a learning strategy. What are you going to do to kind of cement and bring home and apply the knowledge that they gained through the assignment that they had before class that's related to getting them to be competent or be able to obtain that outcome that you set for them at the beginning of the class. And then how are you going to evaluate learning? So in this one, they say there's a narrative analysis and synthesis rubric. So they will use a rubric to evaluate learning. There's going to be a discussion. There's going to be an exam. This might be a clinical course. Be prepared to identify Roy adaptation model elements within clinical situations, and be prepared to identify how Roy developed the middle range theories. So this right here, this lesson plan came from Billing and Halstead's, but it is adapted from Steve Yellen at Michigan State University. Okay, I know this is a lot. I'm going to give you these slides, and this again that we just went over is for week 4. So next week, let me just put in there. But I thought it'd be good for you to kind of have a little bit of an overview of what was due next week. So when you are developing your course name, course description, course outcomes, that you will be able to take one of those outcomes and further develop that into a lesson plan in the following week. And then in week 5, you will develop your lesson plan for your graduate course, but we're going to use a little bit of a different template. So stay tuned for that. Please let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, have a great week.